He's the president of the affiliate group of the Alumni Association of the City College of New York, and he's put together tonight's event. The Education Alumni Affiliate Group is one of 15 affiliate groups of the Alumni Association. We also have 10 chapters. And the association can trace its origin back to its first graduating class. July 26th, 1853, members of the class met in the chapel of the original building of City College, then known as the Free Academy, on 23rd Street, and formed the Associate Alumni. And through the years, we've grown, incorporated, changed our name. We are a membership-based, independent organization.
Definitely we're gonna have this for lunch tomorrow.
If you could just remain muted, that would be helpful. Thank you. We are a membership-based, independent organization located on the City College campus. And if you're an alumnus and not already a member, I invite you to stay connected to your alma mater and learn more about our association at ccnyalumni.org. We'll put that address in the chat for you. Our largest event of the year is coming up, the annual Alumni Gala on November 5th, 6 p.m. Recorded event. And we have a silent auction that happens for the week prior, starting on October 20th. Like all of our events, due to the coronavirus concerns, we've moved the event online. We have an incredible lineup of honorees, including Super Bowl III VIP Joe Namath, and a number of other honorees. We'll put the link in the chat bar for you for that invitation as well. Please click that, learn more, and attend. In fact, it is free to attend. It is a fundraiser. We hope you'll give something, but it is free to attend. You can experience what's going on at City College today and what our alumni are up to. So tonight's event, it's purposefully set up as a large meeting. So meaning that later in the program, you'll have an opportunity to unmute yourselves, ask a question, and engage with our moderator and guests if you wish to do so. So until then, please remain muted. At any point in the presentation, if you wish to ask a question, you can send that question, that message in the chat function of Zoom, and Nina will field that question to the moderator for discussion. There will also be, as I said, an opportunity at the end of the event to unmute yourself and you can ask the question directly. We also recommend that you view tonight's presentation in speaker mode. That's the setting at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Tonight, in speaker mode, you'll be able to see our three incredible guests. LeRoy Barr is an officer and staff director of the United Federation of Teachers. We have Rosemarie Sinclair, first vice president of the Council of Supervisors and Administrators, and Edwin Lamboy, who's the interim dean of the School of Education at the City College of New York, and an expert in the teaching of students new to English. Our guests were intimately involved with this enormous task of opening our schools recently. I want to thank you for being with us tonight, LeRoy, Rosemarie, Edwin. Peter, I think I should hand things back over to you and let's get the conversation started.
Great, thanks a lot. Am I up and live?
You are up and live.
Okay. This was the first day that all grades, pre-K through 12, are open, although obviously some kids stayed remote and some kids came in to school. So let me start off by asking Rosemarie, from the point of view of the CSA, how did the school go today?
Rosemarie, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hello, everyone. Bringing you greetings from our President, Mark Cannizzaro, and Executive Vice President, Henry Rubio. It went as well as it could have gone because our wonderful educators have done everything in their power to reopen safely and successfully. They just would not let students go into the building when it's not safe. However, we continue to have major concerns around staffing. While in some cases there may have been enough bodies in the building today and maybe tomorrow, this is not sustainable. These are substitute teachers and central staff, and we must find better ways to provide students the quality education they deserve, especially on the remote.
Rosemarie?
You're muted again.
Okay.
I don't know how I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry. It just keeps going on mute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know what part did you not hear, but I'll just say quickly that it went as well as it could have gone because of our wonderful educators who have done the utmost to make sure that schools reopen safely and successfully. And I'm just so grateful as we continue to work with our educators to see how they just looked at the major concerns of the building and continue to see that we have a concern around staffing. And of course, we've seen that there were bodies in buildings today and maybe tomorrow, but it's not sustainable. And we see that there are substitute teachers and central staff, but we have to find a better way to provide students the quality education they deserve, especially on the remote side, since most students will be learning remotely on most days. Nevertheless, our members and their staff will continue to strive each day to have a successful school for their children. And we're just so grateful for that.
Thank you. LeRoy, how did it go for the teachers?
Thank you, Peter, and I want to thank David and all my fellow panelists, and good evening to everybody who is watching tonight. I can say to you that what we've been trying to do is to make sure that we kept our promise that we made back in March, that we wouldn't allow schools to open unless those schools were safe, and trying to make sure that we created an environment for our children and for the staff that were there that was not only safe, that it was a good learning environment for them. So, as you know, this is the third date in terms of a rolling opening that has happened. The first date was for District 75, pre-K and 3K, and that went very well. We were in schools citywide. We made sure that any schools that had issues in terms of three different things, in terms of PPEs, in terms of protocols in place, and in terms of ventilation, that we went around to those schools, we checked those schools before they opened, and any schools that had issues, we made sure that we sent folks out to correct those issues before people arrived on that day. And I can tell you on the first opening day for those schools, things went well. The second date was this past week, where we had the K-8 schools open, and that went well as too. So we made sure that those things were in place. We got very few calls. We set up a hotline for members to call us if there were any of those things missing. The calls that we got, I'll give credit where credit is due. For the most part, 95% of it, DOE was on top of it. They got around, they made sure that they had those things in place. We didn't get any complaints about PPEs or protocols in place. That being having plexiglass in the office, having plans in terms of how children get off the bus and come into the building. Which door do they come in? Which door do they leave from? All those plans were in place. And then, Peter, to the question you asked, how did things go today? It was a continuation of those first 2 days. We think that things went very well. We've been out in schools throughout this entire city, and for the most part, things went well. Now, I think that you already heard some of the things that we got to work on. We got to work on making sure that our staffing is in place, and the staffing is properly done. The other piece that we have to really be careful about, and I know that everybody's paying attention to this, are the certain zip codes that have spikes, right? So we're watching that closely. If we continue to have certain zip codes that are above 3%, we're going to ask that schools within that zip code close. If the entire city remains above 3%, we're going to ask that schools close. Not schools close, but buildings close. So that's where we are in terms of this very delicate dance of trying to make sure that we're creating a safe environment. But what we basically wanted to do was keep our promise to parents, keep our promise to members, keep our promise to principals and APs and all the titles that are in those school buildings every day, that we're going to do all that we can to create a safe environment for them to come into, and we're going to do all that we can to make sure that they have what they need to deliver instruction in a quality way. So there's work to be done, but the basic answer to the question that you asked is, all in all, we think that things went well today.
Thanks a lot. Dean Lamboy, what were your challenges as a Dean of the School of Education?
Edwin, you're on mute. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I should know this by now. Peter, first I want to thank you for your invitation, and I want to thank the School of Education Alumni Association for keeping the legacy alive. Challenges as interim dean of the School of Education. First, I'd like to say, in response to your first question, Peter, we have 148 student teachers this semester. 56 of them chose to have a hybrid experience, and at some point they will start going to school and meeting with cooperating teachers and students. 92 of them decided to have a completely remote experience. So in terms of how it went today, I think it's safe to say that they were interacting with cooperating teachers and students, and everything happened remotely. Challenges for the School of Education. Are you referring specifically to what's been going on for the last few months, Peter?
Yes.
Well, I want to say that I became officially the interim dean of the School of Education on February the 3rd. The first big task that I had was to respond to the Teaching Fellows RFP. That was the first big project that I had in front of me in February. A few weeks after that, you know what happened. We were hit with the pandemic, and everything, absolutely everything changed. One of our main goals was how to support our faculty and students as they transition to online teaching and learning. We did a lot of workshops. Lucky for me, my associate dean has a lot of expertise on teaching online, and he took care of the transition and helped faculty, helped students. In the School of Education, we have a lot of IT specialists. Henny, whom you probably know, Doris Grasserbauer, Chi. We have a great staff of people who responded to the call to support our faculty and students in this transition. I could get into a lot of other details, including making sure that faculty and students had the devices that they needed to be able to teach and to learn, as well as internet connections. That was a big challenge. Things transitioned through the months, and right now our biggest concern is how do we make sure that our students who are student teaching have a rich student teaching experience, and those who are doing field work, most of whom are doing everything remotely, are actually learning what we say they're supposed to learn in our courses. So there are many different pieces to the big challenge that we're all dealing with, Peter.
Thank you. Rosemarie, what do you think for the principals? What do the principals view as their greatest challenge going forward?
I think that the greatest challenge that our principals face, I think it's more like a twofold. We mentioned the fact of staff already, and that was one. The second thing is the uptick in the COVID cases in various neighborhoods, and we have our members there. I went to visit on Friday in one neighborhood, and I saw the fact that there were so many people without their masks. They weren't just following various protocols outside, and you know, our principals are very concerned about these cases. We just want to make sure that the neighborhoods are safe so that our children, our staff, and principals will be safe, and that we'll be able to have the in-person learning that is needed, the online remote learning that is needed. So those are the main thing, the staffing and the uptick that we see in the community, various communities.
LeRoy?
Yeah, so I concur. I think that staffing is clearly an issue. You know, the good news is that the mayor and the chancellor agreed to hire 4,500 to 5,000 people to fill these vacancies that are out there to make this plan work. What you heard is, you know, you're bringing in people who haven't truly been trained and not totally embedded in the work of the school yet. So now you have to ramp them up and get them to the point where they're actually a vital part of what's taking place. And you get them PD and all the things that they need. So again, the quality of instruction is there as well. The neighborhoods, in terms of the uptick of the positive cases, the percentage of positive cases, case results that are coming back, the school is a microcosm of the neighborhood. So let's take it out of the school and really talk about the neighborhood itself. We have to really remind people that the pandemic is not over. I think, people have gotten comfortable and they're not actually adhering to some of the basic protocols, tenets of how the medical professionals have said to us that we can open schools, how we can get past the pandemic, how we got the rate down in the first place. And that includes wearing masks, staying 6 feet apart, and all the things that we've been doing for the past 4 or 5 months. We have to really try to remind people that the pandemic is not over. So I think those are the greatest challenges that we have, and hopefully we'll be able to face those head on in the days and weeks to come.
Thanks. How are you guys supporting the social and emotional needs of your members? This is an enormously stressful time. And I see on Twitter all the time, teachers being nervous and concerned and, and can't fall asleep and everything else. How are you addressing these needs of your members? Edwin, why don't you go first?
That's a very good question, Peter. And I see that in our faculty and staff as well. At first, we were all sort of in shock, just trying to figure out how to do things, how to do our work, much of which depends on personal interactions. And now you can see that a lot of people feel successful because what they have accomplished, but also tired. People need a change. People need an opportunity to interact in ways other than what we're doing right now, Zoom. Unfortunately, as LeRoy said, the number of cases has gone up, unfortunately, and we haven't received any official notification from CUNY Central, but I'm afraid next semester is going to be exactly the same. I think one of the ways in which I, at least, can help my faculty, staff, and students is by being accessible at all times. We have explored all ways of communication, and if anybody needs anything, somebody to talk to, we have people who are available at all times. But it's taken a toll. I'm afraid to say that it's taken a toll.
LeRoy, how are you addressing it for teachers?
Yeah, Peter, thank you for that question. So what we said from the beginning, and first of all, let me acknowledge the great work of all the educational professionals who are out there, the great work that they've been doing, stepping forward during this incredibly challenging and difficult time. And I salute them for being willing to take this challenge on. What we've been saying from the beginning is that we're going to follow the advice of the medical professionals, the epidemiologists who have said to us that you can open schools. Well, let me rephrase that. You can open buildings because schools never close. We've been doing our work so large ever since the buildings closed. So you can open buildings if certain things are in place. And we've been standing on that, right? Because I don't know this work. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how germs spread in the way that they do. And what they said to us is, as long as we have these things in place and we're on top of those things, then buildings can open and people can be safe. So what we've been trying to do is to make sure, and what we've been doing is to make sure that the Department of Education and the City of New York keep their word in terms of making sure that we have what we need to be safe in those buildings. So we understand the fear. It's a very difficult time, but I can also tell you that I've been in schools every day that they've opened, and the look on the faces of the children, the look on the faces of the members, the teachers, the principals, and the APs who are receiving their kids is priceless. So there's fear there, but there's also love there. And that love in the moment is overcoming the fear. But that doesn't that doesn't abdicate the responsibility of the city of New York to keep us safe. So we have to continue to stay on top of these things. It's a day-by-day issue, as we just said, and we're going to make sure that if it continues to be an uptick, as you heard Michael say, we're going to be more aggressive in terms of what happens next.
Rosemarie?
That is a great question. So we started, as soon as the pandemic started, we had various meetings with different members as far as our principals, our our assistant principals, our educators, our supervisors of psychology, speech, and our early childhood directors. What we did, we met with them separately to just talk about what's happening and ask them to let us know how they're feeling, what's going on with them. And then we did collective meetings. We also had Mark from Yale to do social emotional learning, a workshop, so that invited everyone to come out and to hear and just talk about things and just to get certain things off their chest. We also had our national ASFA to have also workshops and a conference just to have people to come in to ask questions. And we also were on the Department of Education Health and Safety Committee, so was UFT. And we met to discuss safety needs of schools, the PPE, the thermometers, the hand sanitizers, deep cleaning, making sure a nurse was in every school. So when we send back, we do a members update and we say, well, you know, we're talking about these things and we're doing these things to make sure that schools will be safe for you when you start working back into the buildings. We're constantly meeting with the chancellor and the mayor to talk about, you know, what the crisis is and how to help our members. We're aggressively advocating for our members, their staff, and most importantly, the children, so that reopening goes as safely and successfully as possible. And we made sure that I was the point person for the members to call if they need certain things in schools as far as safety, because that's one of my charge. That's on my portfolio. And we stayed up, we made sure even on weekends, every time that our members could call us, and we made sure our contact was John Shea, the CEO of DSF in Department of Education, to making sure that we have certain things and trying to just bring down, right, the anxiety as much as possible. Constantly letting them know that you could contact us. We gave them other channels to contact to make sure that our members are feeling more. Of course, it's a lot, but we're trying our best to do all we can to help them in this situation. And they constantly are getting more and more things happening to them. They're getting information late or guidance late, but they're constantly pushing through, and we're constantly letting them know we're with you. You know, it's not CSA at the headquarters. You are CSA, and we are all together working to make this happen.
Thanks. LeRoy, why don't you tell us a little about the member assistance program that the UFT has?
We've had a member assistance program set up, you know, for quite some years prior to this point. So that is, I mean, when you talk about stress, you talk about the fact that people are afraid, it's a perfect opportunity for them to call in, to engage in some of those services that we have to deal with some of that anxiety. So that service is set up, it's something that's offered from UFT to the members that we have, and we have people calling for a lot of different reasons, not just about the pandemic or going back in. I also want to say that we've been doing calls, virtual calls with our members, upwards of 25,000 members on the call at one time, and just having the opportunity to hear directly from the president in terms of what the thinking is, in terms of what's going on. That's been critical for us. We've also done videos as well where we've sent that out to our folks so that they can get an update, a real-time update in terms of, again, the thinking, in terms of all of the conversations that are happening around them, because they hear stuff on the news and information is happening quickly. The question is, how do we get information to them just as quick, so that not only do they have answers, they have the reason behind what's taking place as well. So again, none of that is going to allay the fears 100%. We believe that all of that contributes to trying to at least help people to get into a better place, so that we continue to see what I've seen for the past week and a half, and that is overall people being happy to see their kids and the kids being happy to see them.
Edwin, how are you working with the student teachers who must be greatly stressed, worrying about whether they're going to get certification and whether they're going to fulfill all the requirements?
Was that question for me, Peter?
No, for Edwin.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Well, lucky for me, Peter, I have Bruce Billig, who is here with us today. He is the Office of Clinical Practice Director, who I think we can hear right now.
Yes, you can.
Who has been working very hard and very diligently with his staff, Noris Rodriguez and Ebony Chavez, to make sure that students have all of the information, because that's a big source of anxiety, not knowing what is happening. He has been on top of everything from the very, very beginning, keeping them informed, trying to find the best placements for them. And he meets with these students every other week, approximately every other week. And he's in communication, constant communication with their field supervisors, with program directors, and also with faculty teaching the student teaching seminars, just to make sure that students know what they need to know, get all the assistance that they need to get, and so that we can monitor and see whether there are students who need an additional level of assistance and support.
Thanks. When people ask me for advice these days, I say exercise, meditate, and eat well. Because I think, unfortunately, teachers are so dedicated. Frequently, they don't get enough sleep. They're emotionally stressed and don't take care of themselves. And we all know that it's the first year teacher who gets sick in the fall because they simply overworked and they catch things from kids and everything else, that people have to take care of themselves if they're going to be effective teachers. So I try to stress with people that they have to take care of themselves. And again, I learned a long time ago, exercise is really, really important. And I think all of us have to think in terms, these are such stressful days that you have to do something to relieve the stress in some helpful way. One last question before we go to the audience. If you could ask the governor and the mayor for one thing, what is most important for the school system and for your members? Whether it's an executive order or legislation, what do you think the school system needs most? Rosemarie?
Oh, I have more than one thing, but I think what the school system needs is absolutely the quality staff. The school system needs the building that has the ventilation that's needed for safety. The building is constantly upgraded instead of having it to be, I'm looking at buildings that's been resurrected a long time ago and there's a lot that needs to be fixed. So a healthy, fixed environment for our children, and of course, quality staff and principals working together with staff to get it accomplished.
LeRoy?
I'm going to double down on that answer. I like that answer. and I think really what we can't let them lose sight of is the fact of what was just said, and that is that our schools have been in poor condition for years. And what I don't want to have happen is after this pandemic, because we're going to get through this, is that the attention is taken off of all of the needs that our schools have, all of the needs of our children, the disparities in terms of who has access to the internet, who has access to a laptop, and all of those different things that this pandemic brought to the forefront. when the pandemic is over, because it will be over, I don't want us to lose focus on those things, and I want us to do the absolute best that we can for our children throughout the city. Tell me where your goal is, and I'll tell you where your heart is, right? So put your money where your mouth is. So we want to make sure that ultimately that this is not a short-term or quick fix, that there are some long-term plans that are drawn up to make sure that some of those disparities disappear in the months and the years to come.
I'm sure that that Edwin, as the dean, has some ideas that he would like the state regents. What could they do to make your job easier and more effective?
Well, I have to say that the guidance that we got from the state in the spring, it came a little bit late. However, I'm happy to say that we already have new guidance that is going to help us in terms of the message that we send our candidates when it comes to certification and some of the one particular certification exam. So when it comes to the regions, that's what I would say. But I want to add to what my colleagues said. One thing that I would need is for them to see the importance of our budget. CUNY doesn't have a budget yet, and we need one to be approved soon so that we can continue doing the work that we need to do and that we love to do for our students and for the students that they teach. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks. Let's move on to questions. I see Joyce is online. Joyce, do you have any questions for our panelists?
Yes, I do. First of all, you'll see Joyce Mundazir. That's the name I use in church, and how it popped up, I don't know. Zoom is everywhere. One of the concerns that I have is it is my understanding that the percentage of students who are coming to school in person or on or being instructed remotely. In other words, attendance is down very, very low. What could be done to make sure that the kids are coming to school, are participating in the virtual lessons, because we don't want them to fall behind? Hello?
Yes,
Anyone?
hi.
Go ahead,
Hi.
Rosemary.
Yes, hi. I believe that what schools are doing is basically contacting homes and making sure they build that trust and that relationship with parents and the community to make sure we have our children on these remote learning and coming in person to school. It is so important also that we have the training to develop a better remote learning process that we could definitely help the children learn and to continue to help them in various areas of their lives. So as we continue to partner with families and working with them to ensure that their children get the education that they deserve, I think that's a way of getting them to attend school.
Thanks. Edwin, there are a very large percentage of kids in our school system where English is not their native language. And teachers are struggling, and we struggle under normal times. Is there any advice you can give to teachers on how, now I know this is just a few minutes, but how can teachers use this in-person and remote environment in working with kids whose native language is not English?
I think one of the things that my colleague just said was involving the families. Families have to be part of this. And there are many cases in which the parents, for example, don't know English and cannot support those students, right, who are English language learners. However, there might be cousins, there might be uncles, there might be aunts, there might be community organizations that are very much interested in supporting these students. I have lots of friends who are principals, and they all say that that is one of the biggest challenges right now. And to tie it to something Joyce, hi Joyce, just said, I know of a few cases of students who are English language learners whose families are struggling because of COVID-19, and they're not attending class because they're helping their parents or they're working, right? So we need to look at individual situations, and we need to look at the specific needs that English language learners have, involve the family, and we could get into specific second language acquisition theories and strategies that work, but I guess I will leave it at that, Peter.
Peter, can I just tag on to that just very quickly? That the involvement of the parents is extremely important because yes, kids want to come back to school. Teachers do want to come back to school, but I'm kind of concerned of what happens when it gets to be November or December, and the attendance is not what it should be, because we definitely don't want the kids to be behind. Lord knows they have been out of school for 6 months already, and we don't need to compound that situation. So anything the alumni can do, or can we help? That's another question that I have.
Yeah. Could I just add something?
Sure, Bruce, go ahead.
First, I want to say hello to Joyce.
Sure, Bruce, why don't you identify yourself?
Hi, Bruce, how are you?
So I'm Bruce Billig. Edwin mentioned me. I'm the Director of Clinical Practice at City College. I just wanted to quickly mention that myself and my staff, speaking with lots of principals, we really have to be very proactive in utilizing student teachers. And I think there needs to be, rather than just guidance from the chancellor that came out several months ago, it should be a major push that schools should be working with schools of education, get those student teachers to work collaboratively. We have to go through a couple of hoops, especially with Google Classroom and the issue of checking in Galaxy, and with the HR person in the school district. I'm just pointing out that there's lots of barriers, and I know they're for safety reasons, and I'm a former principal, so I'm not going to argue that. I'm just going to say that we have student teachers. We can take a different look at field work and to see how our students in our schools of education can work with parents. We have bilingual programs. They can adjust the hours to where they call in the evenings and work with parents, and just be an additional adjunct to what the teachers are trying to do, and communicating about which parents need to be contacted, especially in the family's language. And this should be a big deal, and I'm just not hearing any of that from the chancellor's office or anyway. But we have here, there's a lot of outstanding people in the audience right now, and of course the involvement of the UFT and the CSA is paramount, and I know they will be involved. And several of I looked at the list, and we have several members of our Education Alumni right now in this conversation, the former principals. And I think this is an outstanding opportunity that should not be left after we leave this room.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to stop.
Let me thank everybody. You guys have been absolutely great. I mean, I think this is the type of discussion which is really useful. So this is what we're going to do. We recorded this, and we're going to post this on our Facebook page, and we're going to email it to our members. because I think we should spread this far and wide. I mean, we're all on the same page. We're working extremely hard, and the more we cooperate, the more effective we're going to be. I mean, there are so many caring, dedicated, involved people, and so many people outside throwing rocks at us, every day, the newspapers and this one and that one, and, saying it's the teacher's fault, it's the union's fault, everything else. But we know that it's principals and teachers who hold the system together, and we work with parents every single day. So let me thank all of you. I think you've done a spectacular job, and we're gonna, we've recorded this, and we're gonna send it out, and any of you can make whatever use of it you want. So let me say, you go out, have a nice dinner, take care of yourself, meditate, exercise, and this too will pass. And don't forget, on November 3rd, we're all giving you a big assignment.
Peter, I'm sorry. Can you wait 1 second? We have one question from one more guest.
Sure, go ahead.
I've unmuted her. Dolores?
Yeah, thank you. My name's Dolores Lozaponi, and I'm the educational liaison for the UFT, one of several that are in that category. So I'm trying to think of the future. This eventually will be over, and what should we start doing, and how can we encourage the different systems that we work in to prepare for the students who maybe have fallen a little behind because of this system? What can we do?
Well, that's a small. That's a small question. I mean, sure. Well, I think on November 3rd we could take a step towards resolving that.
Yeah.
And that's the advice I would give people for now. And obviously, if the Congress approves this next chunk of money that's going to go to schools, that would be an enormous help. It would relieve all the funding issues. So thank you, everybody. I think you've done a great job. I'm really happy we could do this. I wish you a wonderful evening, and I will send the recording to you as soon as it's ready. Thanks a lot, guys. You were great.
Thank you. We definitely need the funds in schools.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, everyone.